super excited to be going over our book that we are going over today. We are reading Rich Dad's Guide to Investing, and David will be covering the intro through chapter 7 today. Take it away, my friend.
Yes. So we kind of start off the book, and he kind of goes into kind of a good idea of what we're going to discuss in the book. He also in the intro kind of talks about why the rich get richer. With some certain laws that are kind of put in place. Does anybody kind of want to jump onto that? Was that kind of new for anybody? Talking about the SEC and some of their laws.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really know like a lot about that when I first read this book about the accredited investors and things like that, like the stuff that you really make the money off of. Yeah, you can't get into it unless you've got money, which is kind of stinks. Like if you want to make the money, you gotta pay to play, I guess, or however you want to put it. So, but there's like a legal thing there.
Yeah,
preventing you.
Yeah, I knew there were legal entities and there were rules. I don't think I knew to the extent of the rules as far as investing goes, but I can tell you that the intro, since I am now interviewing financial advisors, has changed my list of questions.
Good.
Yes,
Good.
it definitely changed the list of questions that I will be asking as we are interviewing. I think I have a meeting either today or tomorrow with another one. So I'll be excited to put those questions into place because I want to understand, when you go with somebody like Edward Jones, well, a lot of times, I don't know if you know this, but part of the reason we left Edward Jones was because if your money's there, those financial advisors, because of the SEC laws and the rules, they can't really invest in a lot of different things that are higher risk or that may make you more money. Their investments are a lot safer, right? But that's not necessarily what you're looking for long term.
Right. Which he calls sanitized investments.
Correct.
Right. Natalie, anything that you kind of learned from the intro that maybe shocked you?
Yeah, exactly that.
Okay.
I was impressed and surprised, and I didn't know that there was guidelines like that out there, but definitely need to learn more about that part of the investment world.
So one thing I kind of like about the intro, and actually even more so in chapter 1, so it kind of tells it in story form. Some of the story was from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but he kind of paints the picture that I kind of relate to. And it's like, okay, well, really, he's just starting from nothing. And honestly, so is his dad, and it's like, I can relate to coming out of high school and coming out of college, not so much basic training, and just thinking to myself, okay, well, what's next? I at that point, I kind of knew I wanted to get into investing, but I had no idea about the quadrants. I had no idea that I was getting into the E quadrant. Who else kind of had like that same, like, who else kind of relates to that? And how so?
Well, it kind of stinks that like his poor dad / real dad and him are at the exact same spot. And like his dad's like, what, 25 years, 30 years older than him. And
Right,
they're not close. They're like in the exact same spot. They're unemployed and they got no money.
Exactly.
Like, he's got 30 years head start on him. And that thinking is what kind of woke me up in the first book. That thinking of, we can't think like that anymore. Not in this world. We got to think more long term. We got to think different than everybody else thinks.
Right.
And it's another one of those slaps in the face of, we got to wake up to get down business.
Right. For me, when I was kind of going through it, and I don't remember where he inserts this question. I love how all of our books are giving us questions like, does it make the boat go faster? Well, is this a wealthy person's perspective or is this a poor person's perspective? And I love how kind of in that intro, he starts talking a little bit about how your perspective is probably where you're going to, in chapter 1, what your perspective is where you're going to end up. If you think that, I have a client right now who like literally told me the other day, she's strategically staying poor because in her brain, it's easier with the government health insurance and these different benefits. And it was like, when he was reading that part, I was like, oh, well, all she has to do is now strategically be wealthy, and she will be. I mean, you got to put some work
Right.
into it, but why would you strategically choose to be in that environment? And a lot of times it's because of lack of education. You know, his 3 E's, I don't remember what they all
Education,
were,
experience, and excess cash.
correct. And so education is so important. And I just think that it was another eye-opening question. Am I looking at this from the eyes of somebody who is wealthy, or I'm looking at this from the eyes of somebody who is not? And then I love how he starts talking about systems. I think that's later in the book, though.
Right. Right. So actually, you kind of touched on this a little bit. So like the 3 E's, he talks about this in chapter, well, he starts it in chapter 1, where he talks about what should I invest in, which I kind of like the way he puts these chapters together, because he kind of throws out a lot of questions that get asked a lot. So for instance, in one of the chapters, he actually talks about giving advice on a panel. And somebody called in and, was like, my grandmother can give me X amount of dollars. What should I invest in? And he kind of used that as a teaching point for Robert to kind of show, okay, well, first off, you really got to want your education, your experience. And if you're doing both of those, you're going to have the excess cash. And so then he kind of goes into analyzing, how Rich Dad got there, in chapter 2, pouring the foundation of wealth, thinking about how Rich Dad got wealthy. Well, he started off on the frugal side of town. He wasn't trying to show off. He wasn't trying to spend any extra money that didn't have to be spent, because he was using it all for his businesses. And so also chapter 3, we kind of see about prioritizing security, comfort, and to be rich. This one was a huge eye-opener to me, especially security. I never realized, even the first time reading this, I didn't catch this the first time. Security is linked to scarcity. Did you guys catch that? And
Yep.
Like
Security.
Yes.
So like the security comes from running out on the ledge and like being crazy. That's what the security is. The security is not sitting tight, not jumping into traffic. That's not the security, which is kind of, and that's the thing. I mean, we're looking for security, but it's the different like definition of security,
Right. Right. And that's what I was just about to say. His dad told him to go be secure his whole life. And in 50, like that, like having that job and having that retirement was actually not security, because he was dependent on an external source. And so for me, it was nice to maybe define what security really actually looks like, and
Right.
not what our society has given the definition to security to be, because
Right.
it's not like a job. I say all the time, I'd rather starve to death working for myself than flourish working for someone else. I really would, because they can pull that rug out from underneath you at any point in time. And my personality can't live with the stress of knowing that security could go away tomorrow.
Yep.
Exactly. And actually, the way he explains it, it's linked to one of those two money problems. So the more you kind of hone in on security, the more you're going to see the world of not enough money, as opposed to much money.
Right.
And then I guess if you really think about it, when you go to prioritize, if you're seeing a world of not enough money, is there a need for security? I just kind of thought of that.
But if you're living in a world of not enough money, there is no security. Not at that point, nothing is secure. So I don't know that those two things
Exactly.
even coincide or exist together.
Which is why we feed into the competition, fighting for jobs. We feed into, well, you can't have this, I have to have it. We get into that win-lose mentality. So really a lot of our problems, especially from a financial health standpoint, just comes from security, wanting that security because it leads to the scarcity. So chapter 5, we get into why is investing confusing. As he kind of goes through the different types of investments, did anybody get kind of overwhelmed?
Yep.
Overwhelmed when he went over the different kinds of real estate to invest in, and I do that for a living. I was like, commercial, residential, land,
Mhm.
and he kept going.
And he kept going, right?
Yeah, so I did not realize that there were that many titles to that many different things. Now something I did find interesting that I think he talked about right around chapter 5 was if you, and I've been really focused on this idea here lately, that if you want to be an expert in something, he said, you know, how do you eat an elephant? Atomic habits, one small habit, one small bite at a time. But to go in and learn a new word from that industry.
Mhm.
And so I think I am now committed to learning a new word about real estate every single day for this year, because it's a fact. This is a stat that I was looking up the other day. If you want to become an expert in something, it takes 1,000 hours most of the time to really be able to speak that topic. You may not be an expert, but if you've spent 1,000 hours on a topic, you're going to know probably 90% more than anybody else on an average level knows about that topic, right? So at that point, people begin to think you're an expert. And to hit that 1,000 hours in 1 year, it's 18 minutes a day.
Oh,
right? So I just broke this down for my daughter. She wants to play lacrosse in college. The idea of practicing every single day is extremely daunting to her. Like she, in her head, she spent 4 hours at practice, you know, or 3 hours at practice after school, because she gets there early and works with a trainer and does some extra stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but they keep telling you your stick skills are bad. So I was looking up these stats for her, and it's 18 minutes a day. So I told her, I said, you know, go outside and spend 10 minutes a day, cut that in half, and you're at 500 hours. That's 500 more hours this year than any other senior is going to put into their, I mean, I watch these girls, they don't, you know, some of them, 10% of them, 20% of them may actually practice, but most of them don't. And so I found that to be very interesting. And I think I want to implement that into investing in real estate. I want to find one word, and I don't know if there's 365 real estate words. So I kind of thought about taking one word a week and really researching it and diving into it and understanding it. And, you know, I think you'll go down some rabbit holes and probably learn some other words that we don't need, but the one word a week and then trying to use it in a sentence. I was like, using the edge method all the way.
You could put it in a reel too, and then
Listen, motherfucker, you know I've already got that.
I didn't.
I was
You didn't have to call me that. I'm just
thing.
trying to help out. Damn it!
how can we
This
say this to social media?
That's coming.
Oh man. So
Moving on.
go ahead.
Moving along. Yeah.
So yes, Laura, words are powerful. Words are very powerful. That's kind of where he talks about in Are You Planning to Be Rich or Poor? You know, and so, you know, he kind of talks about this is where he went off to dinner with his dad. His dad kind of talked about, you know, oh, okay, do you think money grows on trees? You know, do you think I'm made of money? And he started putting those little things together. To your point, I feel like a lot of words are just really powerful. And he even talks about, you know, a bit of the difference between, you know, those are successful and those are that aren't. It's just the terms that they know in that specific, you know, type of investment or that specific industry or whatever. You know, Robert was kind of comparing the terminology, whereas his dad was just using a lot of academic terms, and then his rich dad was using a lot of more technical, financial, corporate law terms. So the big thing there. Also, investing as a plan was a chapter that I thought was really nice. He actually talked about investing as a personal plan. This one was kind of, I'm not gonna lie, this one almost kind of seemed a little backwards until he started to explain it. Because I've always thought of investing as actually a business plan. But the way he explains it, it actually goes, it kind of opens up a couple of different things that really need to be added to the plan. Like when he talks about with the example of the individual that called in, he started talking through very clear risk items and basically asking him what are your risk responses for if you use up a bunch of money and your mother can't afford to, hold that debt. And the guy got offended. It's like, I'm not looking for personal advice, but it's like, but what you're not realizing is this is personal. You have to have a personal plan. Does that change you guys's strategy for investing going forward at all? And really anything from these first 7 chapters.
So when I was listening to this the last time, the word that struck me over and over and over and heard it millions of times, I felt was the word plan. And that's like, I could tattoo it right now because I heard it so many times in this book. And so it's really driven to me. It's like, okay, well, either I hope they get to a point where how do you write your own financial plan, or where do you even start? And I was, if you guys have any recommendations on that, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, absolutely. So he does go into a bit more into the book. So once we get further in, if you want to keep us updated on that, we can actually go through that.
Okay. Yes, I feel like I need to write a plan after getting to this point.
Right. Did anybody go through any of the questions? Go through and answer any of the questions?
No, I was still thinking about the plan. So for me, I don't think it changed when you start talking about the plan. I don't think it changed my perspective and how I look at things. I just think it reiterated what I already know, right? When I'm coaching my people, what is the first thing I tell them? Go write your business plan. What's the second thing I tell them? Go write your 1, 3, 5, figure out how you're going to work that business plan, and then go write your 30, 60, 90. Figure out what days you're going to implement each of those things in your plan over the next 90 days. And I started thinking about, because I have no interest in getting in stocks and mutual funds and all that kind of stuff. I have a guy for that. He's got my 401k. Craig and I, we believe that wealth will be found for our family in real estate. But I started thinking about the plans that a lot of my investors have told me about, or that I've learned over the years. And I think it kind of makes it make more sense or become more real. A lot of long-term investors, one of the biggest ones in the Atlanta market, Jar House, right? Their strategy is they buy today, they buy a house that needs some renovations, that's not amazing, right? So they can get it at a decent deal. They're slum landlords for 7 years, and then they sell it. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where the house's projection is going to be in another 7 years. They sell it. That's the plan. They stick to it and they don't deviate from it. And they make it work, right? And so having a plan, I think, gives you checks and balances to know if what you're doing is working. And then it also takes away from that, oh my God, I wish I would have, or I should have. Because you have a plan, you achieve your goal, you move forward, and you stop looking backwards. Without that plan, you may buy a stock or you may buy something and go, oh, well, shit, I should have sold that 6 months ago, or I held it too long, or I sold it too early because I got emotional and I got scared. I think if you have a plan, it takes the emotion out. And if there's no emotion involved, you can execute, right?
Right.
And so I think that for me, hearing plan just reiterates that a plan is executable. Non-plans are not executable because you have nothing to measure something that doesn't have a plan or a goal or a whatever. And I think that's why people that trade in the stock market get wealthy. They're not looking to hit a home run on every stock they buy. They're reading the chart to see, can this stock make me 20% today? Because my goal is 20% today or 30% today. Right. And in flippers, same thing. David and I now have a plan. We know that if we can make $45,000 on a house, we're willing to take on the risk. Right. Whereas a lot of flippers look at it that are more experienced than we are, maybe have a better system of coming up with houses, right? We still struggle to find these derelict houses because we just haven't been doing it long enough. So we've said, hey, listen, if our numbers show 45,000, that gives us a $10,000 contingency budget and still enough money to where 1 or 2 flips allows us to buy a short-term rental.
Right.
And so it's a lot easier to diagnose each property as we're looking at it and to say, yes, it's one worth looking at, or no, it's not, based on numbers. So plan shorten your time to get there as well. We'll find a house much faster because we have a solid plan in place we're both comfortable with.
Right.
My brother-in-law does trading, and that's what he always talks about, is like in every trade that he does, he's got an out price on the top or the bottom. And if, let's say, he buys Google for $20 and it gets to 25, let's say, and it could get to 500, but he says 25 is the number. Gets to 25, he's out. If it gets to 17, he's out. Like, but whatever, and I don't know what the exact numbers will be, whatever, but it takes the thinking out of the day-to-day. Now, the thinking is, do we need to adjust our plan?
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is our plan, but that needs to be completely away from the battle. You know, we don't figure out the battle strategy in the middle of the war, like in the war zone.
Right.
That's in the tents back there, away from all fighting, and then we try to implement the changes. So, and I think that's for I think for a lot of people, it's just the day-to-day craziness of everything that goes on in life, and nobody has time to put a plan together. I think that's again, that's the difference in the approach of Rich Dad Poor Dad, or you know, nobody sets time aside to think about it.
So one example that I actually want to share, I came up when I was writing a post. It kind of explains like a lot of the benefit behind the plan, a lot of what you guys are saying. So for instance, if you take a stock and you purchase it at like $100, and so one of your risks is going to be obviously it dropping below $100. So to stop you from getting so like scared, and you're also focused on long term because you don't want to pay the short term taxes. So once it falls below a certain price, let's say 70, you purchase a put option. Right. And so then once it falls below a certain point, bottoms out, and then starts to turn back around, and then you profit off your put option, purchase some more, and then allow the price to go up. That's a plan where like you can actually mitigate your risk, and you can take those same plans. I've seen businesses use it that invest in foreign currencies, or they just have foreign currencies, and they'll actually have certain things set up to where if the economic condition of a specific area drops, they'll pull a lot of inventory. So a lot of those plans, a lot of the times they're kind of in place to kind of help with certain risk responses, because to your point, Steve, having that risk response already there, but you freaked out and kind of found out, oh crap, this is what's happening. You take a second, wait a minute, we wrote this in the plan. You know, let's not run around like chickens with our head cut off. Let's just follow the plan, and then let's look at how we need to adjust this for the rest of the world. So just one kind of example I want to leave you guys with. But that brings us to the end of chapters, the intro through 7. So next is chapter 8 through 14.
Sounds good to me.
That's about 2 hours.
So that means I need to listen starting tomorrow.
Yes.
I like to listen twice, and so
yes.
I'm on 4 hours of listening. That's a bunch of 30-minute mornings.
So 8 through 14, huh?
Yes.
Damn, it's a lot of reading, man.
Yes, it's 2 hours.
I'm reading this one since I got the book, so I got to read this.
Okay.